Space is quite vast.
We're receiving a signal.
On audio,
Oh my God, it's those stars.
Doc, you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
Prepare ship for ludicrous speed.
Into the limitless boundaries of space.
It's in the name of science.
Absolutely marvelous.
The latest result in machine intelligence.
God creates dinosaurs. God destroys dinosaurs. God creates man. Man destroys God. Man creates dinosaurs. I am your father. The podcast from Planet
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast from Planet X. My name is Ben, and with me today, as always, is my co-host David.
What's up, guys?
Today, we are covering the ever-famous, ever-amazing, if that's going to portray my feelings about this movie, Back to the Future, Part 1. There's plenty of things that we could say about this movie, but before we get into our thoughts beyond the fact that it's an awesome film, let's start with the synopsis, if you would, David.
You mean this wonderfully terrible film that is absolutely terrible?
Excuse me? What was that?
Oh, so in the 1980s sci-fi classic, small-town California teen Marty McFly, Michael J. Fox, is thrown back into the 50s when an experiment by his eccentric scientist friend Doc Brown, Christopher Lloyd, goes awry. Traveling through time in a modified DeLorean, Marty encounters young versions of his parents, Crispin Glover and Leah Thompson, and must make sure that they fall in love or he'll cease to exist. Even more dauntingly, Marty has to return to his own time and save the life of Doc Brown.
Okay, so the cast and crew, as we kind of mentioned in the synopsis there, Back to the Future Part 1 stars Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly, Christopher Lloyd as Emmett Doc Brown, Leah Thompson as Lorraine Baines McFly, Crispin Glover as George McFly, and Thomas F. Wilson as Biff Tannen. The film was directed by Robert Zemeckis, written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, and scored by Alan Silvestri. All right, so what are your initial thoughts about this movie?
Oh god, this movie is so terrible. I can't stand it.
Yeah? Want to give your real thoughts?
Who said those aren't my real thoughts?
You did when we were previewing this movie the last episode.
I'm just trying to stoke a reaction from you, that's all.
Uh-huh.
Poking the fly.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, it's amazing. I love it. I've watched this movie way too many times, and I still, to this day, catch new details. And I caught quite a few this time around. I think it's because I was looking for them.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because of something that our friend Matt had said. But also because I was trying to be somewhat glued to the details to see if I could spot anything and see what your thoughts and stuff on them were as well. So it was kind of eye-opening.
They do a lot of foreshadowing in the very beginning scene of the plutonium, I realized. I never realized that his skateboard ran up against the plutonium, and then even before he comes into Doc's room, there's a radio broadcast about some Libyans stealing plutonium.
Yeah, they do a really good job with that, and I've noticed most of that before. One of the big things that I've never really paid attention to, but it makes so much sense now, is there's a newspaper clipping on the wall that says something about the Emmett Emmett Brown's. I think they called it estate, the Brown estate, or the Brown mansion, or something. It wasn't just house. Like it was specifically mentioned to be like big and grand. Had burned down during a house fire, and I never really paid attention to the fact that later in the movie, what we think is his house is actually like the old garage to the mansion. And I was like, oh my god, how have I never noticed this before?
Yeah, I know. I didn't actually notice that until you said that just now. That's crazy. Huh.
See? What'd I tell you?
Interesting.
Yeah. So now I'm kind of curious as to why.
World building, maybe? I don't know. They don't ever mention that in the next two movies, do they?
No, not that I'm aware of. So it had to happen between the 50s and the 80s, so somewhere in there, but...
I mean, it wouldn't really surprise me that he burned out part of his estate, so... Yeah.
No surprise there, right?
No. I enjoyed this movie a lot, too. This is probably the movie that I've seen the most on our list, besides maybe Chronicle. I don't know if we'll ever get to that, but out of the ones that we've seen so far, this is probably this and the rest of the parts are the movies that I've seen the most on the list. I really, really enjoy this movie. This movie is fantastic. Although there's one tiny, tiny nitpick that I have now that I've seen this movie a couple times in the past couple weeks. I'm gonna ask you about it and see if your brain kind of goes the same way mine does. He's part of the plot of the movie is that he's met his mom, and his mom is now falling in love with him instead of falling in love with his dad.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make more sense, at least timeline-wise, for Marty, since he's the youngest, for him to be the one to disappear first instead of his older siblings?
No. Well, the only reason why I say this is because we're propagating things from the past, right?
Okay. Oh, okay.
He's the youngest, so it takes the longest.
If you're looking at the timeline like a string,
yeah,
you're burning it from 1955. So yeah, I guess that would make sense. I don't know.
What was your thought? How were you trying to pitch that?
I was just thinking, I don't know, he's closer to the present or something. I don't know. My brain was just a little bit off in the clouds there, I guess.
I guess. I mean, I was trying to see where you're getting at, but the short and sweet explanation to me would be we're propagating from the past, so he's the furthest thing from the past, chronologically speaking, so it would be the last thing to be erased, in my eyes. But
yeah, that makes sense.
I could be wrong.
I don't know. I'll have to think about it more. Maybe my explanation will come to light, but that's the only thing that I count that didn't sit particularly well with me. I don't know. I don't want to say it was like it ruins the movie for me or anything, because it absolutely doesn't. It's definitely a flaw, if it is there, that I can overlook, because there's not very many in this movie, let's be honest.
One thing I didn't notice, I didn't pay any attention to the fact that Leah Thompson was not only his mom, but also his girlfriend.
What are you talking about?
Wait, did you not notice that either?
She's not his girlfriend.
She isn't?
No.
Who is that, then?
Hold on. It's in the Wikipedia page.
Well, then maybe that's why I never noticed it before. Maybe I just misrecognized it this time.
You definitely did.
Whoops.
Let's see. Claudia Wells is Marty's girlfriend, Jennifer Parker.
Oh. Well, never mind then. Just cut that out. Anywho, continue.
All right, so let's get into our first little talking point here. One thing that is now common knowledge about the film's production is that Eric Stoltz, who is more known for being a dramatic actor rather than a comedic one, was originally going to play Marty McFly before ultimately being fired and replaced with Michael J. Fox. If this replacement never happened, do you think the film would have been as much of a runaway success as it was?
I don't think it's very much common knowledge. Otherwise, I'm just stuck under a rock because I did not know this until I read this.
Really? You didn't know that?
No, I had no idea. It wasn't until you sent this over earlier today that I looked at that. I was like, what? What is this?
I can't believe you didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that. I had absolutely no clue. Don't even know who this other person is.
I tried looking up movies that you might recognize, but I couldn't find anything that even I recognize besides Back to the Future that he's not even in.
Gotcha. Well,
so
I don't know them.
The reasoning is Michael J. Fox at the time was on what is it? All in the Family or something like that. It's not Family Matters because that was the Urkel show. Anyways, he was on a TV show that conflicted originally with this schedule that he was going to have when doing Back to the Future. But Eric Stoltz did so badly when he was filming. Like, the director was actually like, oh my god, this guy is not right for this role. That badly. That they ultimately ended up firing Stoltz and signing Michael J. Fox on it. He worked for filming the TV show and the movie at the same time. So he'd do like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the TV show, and then like 6 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. during the weekdays, and then like 7 a.m. the next morning some days for the weekend for Back to the Future.
I wonder if that has any effect as to how many night scenes there are in this movie.
I mean, it could be, but there is still a fair few daytime scenes too. They're mostly indoors, but
yeah. But
that entire first scene is daytime. That's like the first 10 minutes of the film.
Yeah, that is.
And when they're in the school in 1955, that's daytime.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just a thought.
But yeah, you're probably right. It probably is partially why it takes place a lot at night.
Alrighty, so let's talk about the soundtrack for a quick minute. No movie is complete without music. What would you say about Silvestri's score? Good. Silvestri's score adds to the film. Does it detract anything?
Okay. So, I would say as far as the score goes, it's fantastic. I don't think anybody who's seen the movie at least a couple times could not hum you at least the first part of the Back to the Future theme. There's no way.
It's very iconic, and it's instantly recognizable, and it's one of those things you hear that and you know exactly what it's about, and I think not a lot of movies do that.
Mm-hmm.
Jaws does that very well. Everybody knows that. Star Wars does that very well. Everybody knows that. But a lot of movies, you would not recognize anything right off the bat. It might take you a minute or so.
Yeah, I would say a good majority of the movies that we've seen so far haven't really had a recognizable score.
Yeah.
At least not as far as I can remember, you know?
And I think it's very fitting. Like it feels like it belongs with this movie. It's amazing. I love it. The whole
I also
thing
like the actual songs that were in the film, the Huey Lewis and the News songs,
Mm-hmm.
The Power of Love, and Back in Time. Both those are really good.
Yeah.
Especially The Power of Love.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and another fun fact before we move on to our next part. You know the part where Marty is trying to get George to ask Lorraine out, so he dresses up as Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan?
Yep.
That guitar riff at the beginning, it's labeled Van Halen, but the actual band Van Halen didn't want to work on it. So the guitarist, Eddie Van Halen, was the one to he actually wrote and recorded the riff and the drums for that part. So it wasn't pre-existing.
Gotcha.
All right,
That's
so
different.
special effects. The finished film has only 32 special effects shots throughout the 116-minute runtime. Do these effects still hold up, or are there some that are worse for wear?
I think there's a couple of them that are very, 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 very shoddy compared to today's standards. They do not hold up well at all. I think, and as much as I love the scenes where the DeLorean takes off and we have the bolt of light and everything, the sparkles that happen when it does go through the time rift, they're all very, very poorly placed, I think. Like, you can tell they're not on the car, they're like above the car. They don't really blend very well with anything going on there.
Well,
And
they're not supposed to be attached to the car.
If it was like static electricity or like crackles of electricity that was going like around the stainless steel of the body, you'd think it'd be a lot closer than what they are. To me, they're very far apart. Like, you can clearly see that they're like 7-8 inches off of the surface of the car.
Yeah, I don't think it was meant to be on the car.
Well, I think it should have been on the car. For what it was, it looked good at the time, but to me it doesn't hold up. Maybe you can disagree, and that's fine.
That part I'm fine with. The one thing that really stuck out to me was the flames.
Yeah.
After the car goes.
Yeah. I was going to get to that too.
They look okay, but especially in that beginning scene where they send Einstein off and Marty's not even like reacting to the flames that he's standing directly in.
Yeah, and he's like literally got his foot in them almost.
Yeah. It's like, okay, yeah, that wasn't planned so well, I don't think.
No.
And the other effect that I would say isn't 100% up to snuff nowadays either is when Marty's starting to disappear on the stage.
Yeah.
That part was it's a little bit worse for wear.
Yeah, it doesn't really hold up well. The whole hand thing at the very beginning is like, yeah, I don't really call that disappearing. It was different.
Yeah.
Oops. Alright. Any other special effects that you're thinking about?
I mean, clearly there weren't that many in the movie.
No, I'm surprised.
I think the biggest one is probably the lightning bolt, but that actually looked pretty good, I would say.
It's not a special effect, but it's something I'll nitpick. The lightning hits the wire, and he's gone, right? And we get the shot of the pole that was attached to the car dangling from that line. All that looked relatively realistic. I like that. But it's like 20 seconds later, and then the line catches on fire. I'm like, really? It took that long for that to suddenly catch flame? That should have been on fire the minute that lightning hit it, really. Like, he should have hit that, been gone, and the whole thing should have been like flames.
Maybe.
instantly.
I don't know. That might be a little nitpicky, but
It is a little
I was
nitpicky.
I was being nitpicky about the timeline thing earlier, so I can't blame you.
Alrighty, so one of my favorite parts of the entire movie, the time machine. So during the beginning of pre-production, the time machine was actually going to be stationary, at one point even being a refrigerator. Zemeckis suggested that DeLorean because it offered mobility, a unique design, and the golf wing doors would appeal like a UFO to a 1950s family. Do you think the decision to use the DeLorean was the right one, or should they have gone with something different?
I am of the opinion that the DeLorean is a fantastic looking car, in spite of the, shall we say, mechanical issues that have come to light in recent years. If I could have a DeLorean look-alike car that like actually functioned and didn't break down all the time, I would have it in a heartbeat.
You know, that's the thing, right?
100%. I'm sure it is.
Like, they actually have legit. I don't know if they still have them or not, because it's been a few years since I've seen this, but they actually had legit body parts of DeLoreans never put together, like the body panels and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this guy, and I think it was in California somewhere or something like that, that was basically remaking the cars, and it looks so amazing. I could not see this movie without the DeLorean being the centerpiece. It's so unique. It's so iconic. I absolutely love the design. I'm with you on it. I would have a DeLorean hands down if it had the same reliability as my poor Toyota Camry. Just looking a lot better. I'd be with that. I could get down with that. It's just
if I could have those doors, beautiful.
Yes, I love it.
It'd make parking a nightmare sometimes, but
a little bit.
But it would still be cool.
Imagine trying to squeeze out and you got like no way to open the door, because what are you going to do? Squeeze your entire body out like a 6-inch gap at the bottom?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not happening.
No, it's not. Okay, so before we finish up, one thing I should have put on here. I want to talk about the acting of the movie, because I think all of the actors in here are fantastic. So I kind of want to go through the main ones one by one and talk about the highs and lows, shall we say, of their performance. The person that I think was standout in this movie, from the transformation from the beginning, of their character from the beginning to the end, is Crispin Glover. He was fantastic in this movie.
It's this is not going to go well.
Okay.
But I'm going to say it. I know it was supposed to be a main character, but I always felt like Marty's dad was just this like sideshow character that the movie shouldn't have paid as much attention to, and it was just, I know how important he is, and it sounds weird saying this, but I don't know, it felt weird. Like, I'm with you. It was a very good transformation. I really loved how he stood up at the end, and then we get back to the present day, and he's this wholly changed man, and he actually stands up for himself in life, and it's like, okay, I'm with you on this, because it made like such a huge difference. But it always felt such like a weird side character to me. I don't know why. It didn't feel like it was a main supporting character. And I can't explain it.
I mean, he was technically a side character. I'd say the parent plot was more of the B plot. Definitely.
Okay. So maybe I'm not off my rocker for saying it then?
I mean, not necessarily. I would say maybe his role is a little bit bigger than you're giving it credit, but I'm not disagreeing with you that he is more of a side character than a main one.
Okay.
Okay, so main character then. Michael J. Fox. What do you think about it? What do you think of his performance in this movie?
I don't see anybody else doing Marty McFly. I really don't. It was such a one-off character, and it's so Michael J. Fox, and it's I just can't see anybody. I bless that man for what he has to go through these days, but he could get it going back then. I mean, the things he does in this movie, and just the enthusiastic character of him, and all that.
This character could have gone in so many different directions, but I think he picked the right one, where it was like he was a slacker, but mostly because of, you know, the way that his parents turned out, and the way that his siblings turned out, you know? How can you not look at that and be a little bit downtrodden?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The fact that he didn't play up, he could have played up that maybe Marty wasn't, you know, the brightest bulb in the house or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they didn't go that direction, because he's definitely a little bit more manic, but he's definitely got a head on his shoulders as well. You know, going back to 1955, definitely seeing all these crazy things would get you a little bit weirded out, but
yeah.
He played it off really well, I think.
Yeah, I really liked what they did with the character as far as the first movie went, so it was amazing.
Okay, Christopher Lloyd.
I don't know that I'd pick anybody else to be Doc Brown. I think he did a really good job of playing this character. He's really eccentric in his ways, and the lines that he gives, the Great Scott is like, yes. Who else would come up with stuff like this? I mean, it's so unique and it's so different. I don't know that anybody else could have done it. It was a really good performance. He held it together in a lot of ways, but he also kind of like lost it in a lot of ways. His reactions to how things would unfold, like when the tree knocked the cable down and it came undone. He formulates a plan. Okay, you go get the cable, and I'll go up there and drop the rope down to you. He formulated that almost immediately. But then he has like this big shock and surprise when he's trying to reconnect the cable, and the tree's gotten too much of the slack taken out of it, and he can't quite make the connection, and he yanks on it super hard, and then the other end comes unplugged. And he's like standing there for like what feels like minutes, and it's like, come on, man, you know what to do. You've got no time. Let's go. It's reaction to it. It's like, it's just like jaw to the bottom, wide open mouth. It's like, oh, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? It's like, come on, you just thought of this plan not even 5 minutes ago, and now you don't know what to do because the other end came undone.
Well, so I wasn't expecting the other end to come undone.
So he does a really good job playing it when it needs to happen. I like it.
Yeah, he's definitely the perfect eccentric scientist.
Exactly.
Like I can't think of anybody else who would have played this better.
No. Wasn't there another movie that he was in that was like eccentric in some other way? I might be thinking of My Favorite Martian. I might be thinking of that.
I don't know. Are you thinking of Roger Rabbit? I know he was the villain in there.
No, I didn't watch that. I haven't seen Roger Rabbit, which is probably going to be a shock to a lot of people. Yeah, no, I've never seen it.
Well, that's gonna be on our list then.
Anyways.
Okay. Let's do Leah Thompson next.
How do I say this without being too harsh?
Uh-huh.
Is slut too harsh of a word?
Jeez.
I mean, for somebody who's
bit.
supposedly wholesome and I would never do that with a boy, or I would never did that with anybody, or I never did this. It's like, yeah, that's not how it worked out in your youth. Now did it?
Well, that was the whole point.
Yes, I know. But goodness gracious. I'm being too harsh with that, aren't I?
A little bit. There's definitely some dramatic irony there.
Yeah, it was. She did a good job. I loved her as the character. I don't think anybody else could have done a better job with that.
Mm-hmm.
I just at some points it was a bit over the top. It's like, okay, keep your pants on, girl.
Yeah, I suppose I could see that. I think she did a really good job, especially the big transition from alcoholic fat, like 40-year-old woman to this young, vibrant woman in 1955. Completely the opposite of what she was in 1985.
Yeah, this
a fantastic transition. And then her revamped future self was also pretty good too.
Yeah.
What little we got to see of her.
Well, there's a term for that. The revamped future self. There's a term for that, but I'm not going to say it.
Okay, David, tone it down a little bit. Jeez. Okay, and then finally, Mr. Thomas F. Wilson, a.k.a. Biff Tannen.
Man, he really went downhill there for a minute, didn't he?
No kidding.
The whole ending? It's like, oh, yes, Mr. McFly. Whatever you say. No, I meant I'm starting the second coat. It's like, wow. That is not a Biff I expected to see.
Exactly.
Like, he went from the big bad bully to the, yes, sir. I'll get right on that, sir. It's like, whoa.
Oh, and you get knocked out by the school nerd. It's kind of. I'm sure his high school career went way down after that.
A little bit of a big piece of a nice serving of humble pie there, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Definitely.
He did a good job with that.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. It's not my favorite Biff. My favorite Biffs are a little later on in the series, but I still think he did a really good job with that.
Do you like the Biffs in the second one?
Yes, I quite like Biffs in the second one.
What about Mad Dog Tannen?
No, that's a little bit much. I get what they were trying to do there, but it's like, I don't know if he did so well as a Western character.
Yeah, I think he did okay.
You think he did?
There was some nice parallels between the third movie and the first movie, especially the manure cart.
Yeah.
Although I think they did that in the second one too.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that they did that with. you would think it was all supposed to be like one grand plan at the beginning.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy that to think that if this first part had done as well as it did, that we wouldn't have a second and the third part.
Exactly, because go ahead.
By done so well, I'm gonna tell you.
What were the numbers?
Exactly what the numbers were. So there's a budget of $19 million. At the box office, it made $388.8 million.
Globally or domestically?
I want to say that's
That's gotta be
globally.
global, right?
Yeah.
$19 million budget?
Yep. So it's
That's
just over 20 times the budget that they made back.
They did have a very big budget that they did that. I mean, we listen to the budgets for the movies I got nowadays. It's like, good God, how are you going to make
Yeah, I
that?
know.
And they
Well,
turn out making billions
they
of
somehow
dollars.
do. I mean, the Marvel movies are kind of an anomaly.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah,
It's a
no,
little
I'm with
disgusting.
you. It's ridiculous. It is a ridiculous amount.
$19 million budget. They made $300 million back. Yeah, I'd like that. I'd like that money. It'd be a nice return on investment there, isn't it?
That is absolutely insane. Yeah. So to say that it was a runaway success is nothing short of the truth. All right. Well, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to touch on before we give our final rating?
No, not for the first one. I will have lots and lots and lots more to say about the other ones, but we gotta keep this shorter.
All right, yeah. I don't think there's anything that I wanted to touch on either then. Okay. What do you give this out of 5 flux capacitors?
It's definitely a 4.
A 4?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. I definitely enjoyed the next couple of movies more than I do this one, but this is a solid foundation.
Yeah, there was a lot less. I think there was a lot less humor in the first one. Second one is just like nonstop. Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Some of the things they do and the parallels that you could tell that they were going for more fun in that one. Like, and you'd think it was all planned, but no, it wasn't. But for the first one, I think it's a solid 4. Can't complain about that, can you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a 4 is a perfect place to put this movie.
Sweet.
All right. So, next episode we are going to cover, because we decided off camera or off recording that we were going to just cover all 3 of these in a row. We're going to cover Back to the Future Part 2 in our next episode. So, be looking out for that. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you liked, be sure to leave a rating on whatever podcasting platform you happen to be listening on. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast from Planet X. We are hosted, edited, and produced by Ben Mason and co-hosted by David Knowles. Our theme song is produced by the Tormented Teamster. You can follow Ben on Twitter at BenPlaysVidyaS, that's Ben Plays VIDYAS, and you can follow David on Twitter at Car6x16. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can contact the show on Twitter at PlanetXPod or by email at podcastfromplanetx@gmail.com. That's all for this episode. We'll see you next time.